Can you improve your credit score without debt? The answer may surprise you, or maybe not. We'll discuss it starting right now.
This is Debt Free in 30. Here's your host, Doug Hoyes.
Can you improve your credit score without debt? We're going to discuss it. And joining me again on the podcast is Maureen Parent. Did I pronounce your name right there, Maureen?
Yes, you
totally nailed it. And you are coming to us today from Canada, Ontario, I assume.
That's right.
In the Ottawa region. So you are the trustee in our Canada office. So good to have you back. So this is a question that people ask because, of course, when we're dealing with someone who's gone through a proposal or a bankruptcy, or they just want to improve their credit, the obvious thing is, well, I guess I've got to get lots and lots of debt because that's how I'm going to make my credit score better. So the question is the alternate true? Can you have less debt or maybe even no debt and still improve your credit score? So let's start with the basics. Why don't we just answer the question right off the bat? What is a credit score and can you improve it without debt?
Well, a credit score is a calculation of your ability to handle debt. So it's impossible to improve it without debt.
So there you go. That was the show. Thank you all very much. That was our first 1 minute and 30 second show.
Think about it. Like if you have lots of money, you have cash saved up, you're ready to buy a house, you go in and you're like, you know what? I want a mortgage. And they look at your credit history and you don't have one. How do they know if they can trust you? You might have $30,000, but they don't know if they can trust you. So you may not actually be able to get a mortgage if you don't have a credit score.
Yeah, you're right. The purpose of a credit score is to evaluate your ability to handle debt. If you've never handled debt, then how do they know how you can handle debt? So on the surface of it, it may seem that, okay, it's pretty straightforward. You have to have debt to improve your credit score. But I think it's a little more nuanced than that. So for example, I have bills every month. I pay my rent every month. Why does paying my rent every month not factor into my credit score?
Because rent isn't credit and because landlords don't report to the main credit bureaus, so there's no data points for rent on your credit history. Credit scores are directly related to behavior they are predicting, which is borrowing. Okay,
so I get that. I'm not borrowing when I'm paying rent.
Right.
What about my cell phone bill? So, I'm technically borrowing whatever my cell phone amount is each month until I pay it. So do cell phones report to the credit bureau, and does that have any impact on my credit score? Is that considered debt? What's the deal on cell phones?
Right. So major cell phone companies do report to your credit bureau. So if you're making your payments on time, that does help build your score. Not dramatically, because it isn't a traditional credit line, but it does help. It also hurts if you miss a payment with your cell phone. So it gives you a little bit of a history, but not enough.
And just so we're clear here, where you're getting these opinions that you're spouting here are from actually looking at people's credits reports. Is that correct? Like when you're meeting with a client, either up front or doing a counseling session, you are actually looking at credit reports. Am I correct on that?
That's right.
And so you have seen on credit reports cell phone bills that report.
Yes, I've even seen it on my own.
There you go. Okay, so we know that this is actually a thing. 20 years ago, cell phone companies didn't report to credit bureaus. I don't know why, they just didn't. But now they are doing it. So I think you made a very key point there, and that is that if you pay it on time, okay, it may not really help you that much because we're not talking about a lot of debt. But if you are late with it, then yes, it will definitely have a negative effect. So there's one of the answers to the questions about does having debt or not having debt have an impact on your credit score. There's an example where it does. Another question then. So I have lots of money in savings. As you know, I'm a very, very well done, organized guy. So that should make it easier for me to save up for my down payment. That should show that I've got lots of, backing, and therefore I'm a good credit risk. And yet that doesn't improve my credit score. Am I correct on that?
Right. It doesn't. Having a lot of cash does not improve your credit score because having cash isn't having debt. I'm not saying don't have cash. It's brilliant. But in order to improve your credit score, you do have to have debt.
Simple as that. Okay, so with that background, let's dig a little bit deeper just to illustrate this point and discuss what exactly makes up a credit score. And we've talked about this before. So if anybody is listening or watching and they're going, well, I already know how that all works, I will put timestamps in on YouTube so that you can skip over how a credit score is calculated. But let's go through them really quickly just because that, I think, kind of illustrates the point. So according to, well, you go on Equifax's website, for example, they say that there are 5 components used to calculate credit scores. I'm going to mention each one, and then I want you to just explain what it is. Okay? So we'll do this kind of quickly. So 35% of your credit score, approximately, and I say approximately to all this because even though they put this on the website, we don't know what the exact algorithm is. We don't know how they exactly weight it. But what they tell us is 35% of it is based on payment history. So what does payment history mean?
Well, payment history is how you've been repaying your debt. So on time or late. It also shows the number of debts that you have, and it also shows the type of debt you have, the credit card, the loan, the mortgage. So it's a mixture of those things, but definitely payment history involves whether you're paying on time or not.
So if I routinely, well, if on my credit card, I'm a couple of payments behind, that will show up on my credit report.
That's correct.
Simple as that. Okay. So obviously you want to pay stuff on time if you want to have a higher credit score, but you have to have debt in order to be paying stuff on time. Now, the next biggest component, 30% roughly, is utilization. Explain utilization.
Right. So utilization is how much of the credit you're using to how much is available to you. So if you say have a $500 credit card, you're continually having $400 on it, it's going to report an 80% utilization. That's high, and that will hurt your credit score. The utilization, they like to see that you're not needing to utilize all the debt that's available to you, right? So if you do want to put $400 on your credit card, you want to pay it off as soon as you can so that the utilization looks low when they report to the credit bureau.
Yeah, banks only want to lend money to people who don't need it. And that's why utilization is a thing. So if you show that your utilization is really low, then they go, oh, well, you probably don't need it, so we're willing to lend it to you. And we do not know what utilization number is the best because nobody tells us. So there are gurus out there who say, oh, well, you want to be somewhere in the sort of 20 to 30% range and nothing higher than that. I take the view that the best utilization number is 0. Now, of course, if you use your credit card, it won't be 0. That's not possible. But I am of the view that, okay, I use my credit card and I make a payment on it every week so that it's always as close to a 0 balance as possible, which means my utilization is as low as possible. It also means I can't get into too much trouble.
Exactly. And you're also not paying interest.
Yeah, there's no way you can pay interest.
They probably prefer you to have a little bit on it so they're making money off of you.
Yep.
That's not mine.
And the other,
I don't want to have them make money off of me.
No, I agree.
So I pay it off.
I'm happy to have them pay for the cost of the credit card and me not have to pay for it. What we also don't know is the timing. So my statement might be due on the 21st of every month, but they might report to the credit bureau on the 15th of every month. So on the 15th, I'm at 50% utilization because I've got a $1,000 credit card and I owe $500 on it. On the 21st, I pay it off in full. So I never pay any interest. I never owe anything. But on the day they report it, I've got a 50% utilization, which could have a negative impact on my credit score. Okay, so payment.
Well, just one thing I thought of too is that on your credit bureau, they show the reporting date. So if you're really that interested or you're really struggling to try to reestablish, you might want to look at your credit bureau and see if there's a pattern of their reporting date. And so make sure you're paying before then.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm a big believer in if I get paid at work every 2 weeks, I might as well pay my credit card bill every 2 weeks at the very least. And that way I'm never behind and I don't have to worry so much about it. But you're right. If I know what the reporting date is and pay it 3 days earlier, well, then I'm probably going to be in better shape. So, okay, so payment history is the biggest. Utilization is number 2. And then credit history accounts for something around 15% of your credit score. So what's the difference between payment history and credit history? What is credit history?
Credit history is how long you've had credit. So when you first get a credit card, it's going to drop your score because it's a new history and it brings in a zero ranking. So when you add zero to the mix, except for dollars, it usually lowers things. But if you've had credit for a long period of time, that's going to build your score because it's showing, you've been doing this for a long time and you show that you're doing it well. We like that. We'll give you a better score.
Yeah, which is in some ways counterintuitive, because let's say I've got a credit card and I've been doing really well and I've got good credit, and the credit card company phones me up and says, hey, Mr. Hoyes, we want to give you the gold card or the platinum card or the, I don't know what's higher than platinum, emerald. I don't know what's higher than that. So, and I go, okay, that sounds good. That's good. So I'm going to get your gold card. So what they're going to do is cancel my regular card and give me the gold card. Okay, fantastic. The problem then, of course, is I've just taken a credit card that I've had for 10 years, which was contributing positively to my history, and I've replaced it with a brand new card. Even though it's with the same bank, it's a new card, new number. And so my credit history now shows a card that I've had for 2 months instead of 10 years. So I'm not saying you should keep every old card you've ever had, because obviously that's very tempting and can get you into trouble. But if you are constantly grabbing the newest offer and switching cards and canceling the old one and whatnot, you are going to have a much less longevity with your credit history. So, okay, now the two smaller amounts, 10% are public records. What does that mean?
So if there's been any collection activity, that's in the public record, bankruptcy proposal, debt management plans, those are public records. So that's a step beyond paying late, right?
Yeah, and that is the very bottom of your credit report. So if you want to know if there's anything showing up in the public records, it'll there, liens, judgments, that sort of thing will show up there as well.
Right. That's right.
And obviously that will have a negative impact if it's something negative. And then the final item, and again, it depends where you look, but some of them say 10% has to do with inquiries. Some of them say 10% also includes credit mix. So what's an inquiry? What's a credit mix? How do those things impact your credit score?
Right. So inquiries are when someone's checking your credit bureau. So there's hard hit inquiries, which are when you're applying for credit and the creditor is looking at your credit bureau. Because you're looking for credit is considered a hard hit and it will affect your credit score. Now, just because you've asked for credit doesn't mean it's going to drop your score dramatically. There's going to be other factors they're going to look at. If you look for credit frequently or a lot all at once, that is definitely going to hurt your credit score. The other type is the soft inquiry, which is when, let's say you've had an established relationship with a credit card company and they want to increase your limit. So they'll do a check of your credit score because in the fine print of the paperwork, you've approved them to do that forever until you revoke it, but they will do the soft inquiries, but those don't hit your credit score.
Yeah, and most lenders do, we'll get back to the credit mix in a second. So most lenders do soft hits on you on a regular basis. I know that, one of the big banks told me that, we do a soft hit on all of our clients, all of our customers every 3 months. So we are checking to see, did all of a sudden you get a whole bunch more debt? Did something change significantly? If it did, that's a warning flag. But your existing lender doing a soft hit does not show up as an inquiry. It's not going to hurt your credit score. But you're right. If I go out and apply for 5 different car loans, that's 5 different hard hits. At most, I may only get, I may get approved for all of them, but if I don't get approved and it's a hard hit, that will have the potential to lower your credit score. Now, my understanding is the algorithm is sophisticated enough to know that, if you're shopping for a mortgage or a car loan, you're going to go to 2 or 3 different places. So if you've applied for 2 or 3 different car loans in the space of a week, it's not going to be that damaging on you. But if you apply for a car loan and then a week later another one, week later another one, week later another one, it's stretched out over a longer period of time, then obviously you must have been getting declined or not getting a good enough deal. Those hard hits will have a negative impact on your credit score.
Right.
So, okay, hard hits, soft hits, that's the inquiries. What about credit mix? What does that mean?
Credit mix is the mix of your credit. What do you have? What's in there? Lines of credit, credit lines, mortgages, loans. I think Some of that's involved in the payment history, but credit mix, I think, is also important because it shows how you're using your credit. Like a credit card will help your credit score improve a bit more because it's a riskier
it's a riskier type of lending.
It's riskier because you can pay it down and keep using it again, right? And then you can ask for increases and you keep increasing it. So there's a riskier element to it. Whereas a loan, you just get a loan, you can't get more money, you have to pay it down.
Yeah, so it's going to naturally decrease in time. Yeah, and I guess having a different mix, meaning I've got a credit card, I've got a line of credit, I got a mortgage, I got a car loan. It shows that you are able to qualify for a broad mix of different things. A bunch of different lenders were willing to lend to you. So that shows that you are potentially a better risk than somebody who only has payday loans and that's all they get. So a credit mix is the more diverse it is, the better. Now, we went through all of those things not to illustrate how you can game the system, but that's obviously the implication. If you read all those things, okay, so payment history, I'm going to pay my credit card every single week, and that way I'll never be late. I'm going to keep my utilization low, again, by paying it every week. Credit history, okay, well, if I get a new credit card, I'm going to keep the old one open just so that old thing stays on my credit report. A lot of people don't realize that when I pay off my car loan, which was a fantastic achievement, I had a 5-year loan, I pay it off. Well, once it's paid off, it's not there anymore. Yeah. I mean, it still shows up as a debt that has now been paid off. But with the passage of time, because you no longer owe anything on it, it is no longer, contributing in a significantly positive way to your credit score. So they are rewarding the opposite kind of behavior that we would suggest. I want you to pay off your car loan because now you're not paying any interest. But by paying off that car loan, it could have the perverse impact of reducing your credit score. Oh, well, that's the way the system is. That's the way it works.
Right. They do that to increase the hook too, right? The score is a hook. It sucks people in. Oh, that's paid off. Well, now I have to get new credit. So I keep improving my credit score, right? Like it just seems to draw people in for the wrong reason.
Yes. And if you're obsessing over your credit score and trying to game the system, then you will do what's right for the credit reporting agencies. You may not necessarily be doing what's right for you. I mean, what's right for you is having as little debt as possible and is having as much savings as possible. But as we already discussed, that's not what is going to juice your credit score. Pretty sure I talked about that in my book. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Now, I have another theory here, and that is that longevity, which obviously factors into credit history, also factors into things like how long have I lived at the same house? How long have I been at the same job? Because if I've lived at the same apartment for 5 years, that shows more stability than if I move around every 6 months. If I've been at the same job, well, in my case, for 22 years, you weren't even born when I started this company, but if I've been at the same company for a long time, again, that shows stability. I guess I'm less likely to get laid off because I've got this long history. So I would think that form of longevity, employment history, living history, if you want to call it that, would increase my credit score the longer my longevity is. And if you look at a credit report, it's on there. It shows, here's your employment history. Here's how long you've lived there. So I assume it factors into your credit score, but it's not one of those specific items listed. Do you think that has any impact on a credit score?
I do. I can't prove it, but based on the credit reports that I've seen, the longer you've worked somewhere, the longer you've lived somewhere, the better your score is.
Yeah. And so I guess if someone wants to test this theory, which neither one of us can prove, if you're one of those people who is obsessing over your credit score and checking it every month or every day because you got the app on your phone.
You're going to suggest they move?
Yes. Well, when you do move or when you do get a new job that gets reported to the credit bureau, does it make any difference?
Right.
And I suspect if you have a credit score of 850, well, maybe it's not going to make any difference at all. But if you have a credit score of 500, it may be that there are a few point swing either way by moving around. So if you are planning to apply for a mortgage or a car loan or some big type of credit, and you want your credit score to be as high as it possibly can, then my own suggestion would be, well, if you're thinking about moving, wait an extra month until you've got the loan and then move. Or if you're thinking of getting a new job, well, okay, maybe you wait. Now, I know what I just said there sounds totally ridiculous, because you should not be making decisions on where you live and where you work because of your credit score. That's moronic. Right. So yeah. I'm telling you that my advice here is moronic. But if it's like, well, I'm thinking of getting a new job anyways, waiting another month or two isn't going to matter, then that may be something that would potentially have some impact on your credit score. Because let's face it.
If you have the option of waiting, then wait. Yeah, if it makes sense, you can do it. Yeah.
Well, and the other game that people play, I said we weren't going to get into all the games people play, but you got me going here. So if I am a young person, let's say I'm in university or college or something, I graduate, I go off on my own, what you could do is leave your address as your parents' address. Because I know that for a period of time, I'm going to be bouncing around a lot. I'm going to be in university. I'm going to come home for the summer. Then I'm going to get a new job. And then I might have to move a couple of times the first year or two as I establish myself. That's a lot of moving around. If I leave my address at my parents' address, where I've lived for 20 years, then that may be a way to certainly not hurt my credit score. So again, I don't want you to comment on this horrible advice I'm giving, so I'm just going to skip over. So the whole point of this show was, the title of the show was, what was the title here? Can you improve your credit score without debt? So payment history is the biggest component of your credit score. So I'll ask you the same question I asked you at the beginning. Can you have a payment history if you don't have debt?
Well, you can, because the cell phone company, because they're reporting to your credit bureau, that is a payment history, whether you're paying on time or not, right? So, but it's really not going to give you a really good credit score. Just because you have a cell phone bill, it doesn't mean you're going to get a mortgage, right?
Yeah, and I guess the reason for that is your typical cell phone bill is $100 a month,
right? And
the typical mortgage, well, I don't know. What does it cost to buy a house in Canada, Ontario? $1 million probably.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Because it's $1 million everywhere. So when you look at the size and the scope of it, okay, yeah, $100 either way isn't going to have a massive debt. So it is possible to improve your credit score without debt, but not to a significant point.
Right.
Is what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess the better question then is, well, why do you want a better credit score? And you already kind of enumerated some of the reasons for that. You know, I'm doing future borrowing or whatever. So, if you want to buy a house someday, you need a good credit score.
That's right.
But your goal is to buy the house, not to get the good credit score. That's kind of
right. And that's why that's important. Is knowing why you want a good credit score avoids that getting caught up in that hook. I always think of the credit score as a hook. It's a marketing scheme. It hooks you in, it sucks you in. And once you're sucked into something, you're not making choices for yourself, you're reacting. So if you know your goal, you know why you want to have a good credit score, then you can utilize it in a way that's going to help you.
Yeah, that's a key point. So I want to buy a house. So what's the most important thing when I buy a house? Well, having as big a down payment as possible. That'd be good.
Yeah. It would.
Which isn't reflected in your credit score. So if I want to buy a house, what I should really be doing is saving as much money as I can so that I've got a bigger down payment. I don't have to pay the mortgage insurance and whatnot. So that's a classic example of doing something that benefits me, but doesn't benefit your credit score. So, okay.
Right. On the other side of it too, like we said at the beginning, like just because you have a big down payment, if you don't have a credit score, you're probably going to not get a mortgage. So yes, you want to focus on saving, but you still need a credit score if your goal is to buy a house. So one of the things I did, I had the 2 credit cards, right? I had them for at least 2 years. Limit was $3,000 on each. One of them, I don't ever look at my Netflix goes on there. I pay it every single month. I never even look at it. So it gave me a great rating because it was low utilization and always paid. And then the other card I just used for things I had budgeted for. So I paid them off. And so I didn't have debt, but I was credit worthy. So that gave me a good credit score. So you have the cash saving, and you're getting a good credit score without having debt.
Yeah. And you had 2 credit cards, which kind of makes sense. I want one as a backup in case, the bank is down or something like that. But you didn't have 10.
Yeah.
Because that would kind of be crazy. So, okay. So
Sorry.
Joe, go ahead. You got...
No, it's a side point. I was just seeing on the news that Amazon was saying that they weren't going to use Visa in the UK anymore. And I started to think about it. I'm like, I only have 2 Visa cards. Maybe I should have 1 MasterCard, 1 Visa, just in case Amazon starts to play around because they don't like Visa's fees. Anyways.
Yeah, well, and you're right. I mean, I think 5 years from now, I'll be paying in cryptocurrency anyway, so it won't matter. So I like to mention that in every show just for the people on Twitter. So, okay, let's end the show then with some practical advice. So what you are saying overall is you should focus on the big picture. Savings is more important than your credit score, whatever. But if I am in a position where I would like to have a better credit score in the future because, I know I'm going to need to borrow, or I just want to have a credit card so I can, book a hotel room or something. Right. What are the kind of easy, obvious steps I should be following?
Right. So if you're just starting out, like you're just going into university, just came here from another country and you're starting out, obviously you're starting with something small like a secured credit card and having a cell phone with a major company. So that's starting your history. If you already have debt and you already have an established history, you're going to check your credit report and make sure that there are no errors. So you're checking for your employment history, you're checking your addresses, your phone numbers, and the actual debts that you have. So if that's all clear, great. If there's errors, you want to correct that as soon as possible, and certainly before you apply for any new credit.
And just on that point then, it is possible, in fact, quite easy right now, to get your credit report for free from both Equifax and TransUnion. And I always recommend you get both of them because one could be right, one could be wrong. And exactly what you just described. You can go in, like with TransUnion, for example, you can set up an account. It's free. It gives you access to your credit report. It doesn't give you access to your credit score.
No, but your credit score isn't that important.
Right.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah. Well, and the point you're making is I get my credit report and there are errors on it. If I fix those errors, that will probably improve my credit score. I may not know it because I'm not checking my credit score, but it will improve it. So it is possible to get your credit reports directly from the credit bureaus. Yes, you can get them from those places that
sell your information
exactly
to predatory lenders.
Right.
Yeah.
And we're not going to mention who they are, but you can get it directly from the credit bureaus. And you get the reports, you correct the reports. And in fact, even like, again, I'm using TransUnion as the example. If you've got an account with them, you can actually go online and type in, here's what the error is, please fix it. So it's a fairly simple process. So, okay. So
thank God. Yeah.
So back to your practical advice, then get a copy of your credit reports, correct any errors that are on them. Then what?
And make a strategy to ensure you're paying your bills on time. So whether that is setting up an auto payment to come out of your bank account on paydays to pay your bills, but do something to make sure your bills are always paid on time. And then you also want to tackle your debt. So looking at your debt load, seeing what you need to do to get that reduced.
Yeah, and if you've got a manageable amount of debt, I agree, chip away at it on your own. If it's not manageable, well, obviously they're going to be calling you or me, and we can discuss discuss consumer proposals or bankruptcy or whatever. So what is your final overall advice then on the whole credit score, debt, all that sort of thing? What's final advice do you want to leave people with?
Well, don't focus on your credit score so much that you get sucked into scams. Don't fall for those scams, the credit repair loans, any companies that you're paying a big fee for to help your credit score. Stay away from those. Just take it slow and steady and focus what's on important, paying your bills on time, saving money, and keeping your debt low.
Yeah, which is common sense, but we lose track of that.
We do. But look at our society. Like if we look at things, we're always told to keep up with the Joneses, have your life now. Why are you waiting? Why don't you have this now? Get a credit card. Do this now. Have a credit card for emergencies. Not a good idea. So we're programmed. We've been programmed for a very long time to want to have this debt and all that we need now. So it is being practical can be quite hard.
Yeah, because you have to go against the crowd. Everyone else is doing it one way, you're going to do it the other way. But the advantage, of course, is you end up with a lot less debt, a lot more savings. It just makes a lot of sense.
And research shows that you are more content, more stable, more happy when you do that.
Yeah, because you're not looking around and saying, is someone going to phone me? Am I going to get letters in the mail? Like, what's going on? So it totally makes sense. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I think that's a great way to end it. Maureen, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So people can track you down or anybody else at our firm. Hoyes.com is the best way to do that. And if you click on the Canada button or search for Maureen Parent, you will find Maureen. So Maureen, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
So I will agree with what Maureen has said. Don't obsess over your credit score. They are only a partial picture of your financial situation. It does not show that you are a good human being because you have a high credit score. It just shows that you have done a good job of getting a high credit score. It's nothing more than that. There are no quick fixes. Don't be borrowing more because you have this in your mind that you want to get a lower utilization. Let's get them to jack my credit limit up to $20,000 so that I can only borrow $5,000 and therefore have a better utilization. That makes no sense to me. You're paying more interest. It's not in your best interest. Don't be carrying a balance. And number one, don't obsess over your credit score. It's just one metric. If you can eliminate your problem debt, then your credit score will ultimately be much better. So keeping debt low is always the right answer. So that is our advice. Yes, it is possible to slightly increase your credit score without debt, but that's not really the point. The point is to be better off financially overall. If you can focus on that, all will be good. That is our show for today. Thanks for listening. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like and subscribe button. Leave a comment. Happy to know what you think. If you're listening to this on any podcasting app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever, again, please subscribe, leave a comment, leave a rating. It really helps get the word out. That is our show for today. Thanks for listening. Until next week, I'm Doug Hoyes. That was Debt Free in 30.